Hey everyone, and welcome to Every Version Ever. I'm Jonathan North, and I love movies, classic stories, and watching movies based on classic stories. And I especially love it when there are a bunch of different adaptations all based on the same book. Comparing different versions of movies is one of my favorite things to do, and it's been a staple of my online career for the past 3 years, so I thought it'd be fun to take that idea and expand it into an entire podcast. If you're not familiar with my work, I have a YouTube channel and a podcast called I Heart Movies, and within that show I've had several mini-series over the past 3 years, all looking at various versions of several classic novels: Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, A Christmas Carol, and more. One of the very first shows on my channel back in 2017, actually the very first series to which I gave a name, was Wonderland Wednesday. Wonderland Wednesday was my attempt at trying to watch all the different versions of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass that I could find. And I called it Wonderland Wednesday to make it a weekly show, but also because I love alliteration and I thought it was a great, catchy, memorable name. Wonderland Wednesday started with me talking about the 2010 Tim Burton Disney version of Alice in Wonderland, and quickly evolved into me finding new, old versions to watch with my cousin Sarah, who also enjoys Alice in Wonderland, but also really likes old movies, like black and white films, silent films, etc., and there were a surprisingly large number that fit those descriptions. True to the name of the show, just about every Wednesday after that, I, or Sarah and I, reviewed a new version of Lewis Carroll's works for most of the rest of 2017. When we got to December, instead of doing the quote-unquote normal thing that most movie YouTubers do and review a bunch of Christmas movies, I decided to take my Wonderland Wednesday model and use it on another of my favorite classic stories, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I called that series the Christmas Carol Countdown because I was sort of using those videos to count down to Christmas, but really it was because I love alliteration and I thought the title was too good to pass up. After that I had a lot more ideas, however I didn't follow through with them because, and this is probably going to sound dumb, I couldn't think of good enough titles. Like I said, I love alliteration, and at the time I really wanted that for every series that I made. Wonderland Wednesday was a great alliteration, the Christmas Carol Countdown was too, and, well, that's all I could think of. Everything else sounded too clunky. I really wanted to do War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, but how do I alliterate that without making it sound like a Wonderland Wednesday ripoff? I had the same problem with The Wizard of Oz. I didn't want to call everything Wednesday. In 2018, I dabbled with a bunch of non-classic literature-related ideas, mainly starting I Heart Animation, a video series which would eventually lead me to making the podcast I Heart Movies. At the beginning of 2019, sometime after I'd been doing I Heart Movies for a couple months, and after much discussion with Sarah, we decided to do The Secret Garden as my next big series, or short series. There aren't as many adaptations of that as there are of some books. Anyway, at the time of the decision, I didn't have a title, I just wanted to do it. I eventually came up with The Secret Garden series, which is very simple, but I liked that about it. Plus, it's partially alliterated, and it didn't box me into a weekday. Unfortunately for that show, 2019 was a super busy year, and even though we recorded several episodes that summer, they just kept getting pushed back and pushed back. Somewhere in there I did finally figure out a good title for the Wizard of Oz series, Oztober, which would be another themed month like the Christmas Carol Countdown, only it would happen in October. After that my schedule was still full, so the Secret Garden series got pushed back till 2020, which brings us here. As this podcast is being launched, the Secret Garden series is currently happening on iHeart Movies, but unbeknownst to the listeners, it's leading to even bigger things, namely this show. In all my time doing these other series, one option I've been keeping at the back of my mind is doing one show that will take all the smaller shows and unite them into one big series, which would let me do all the other shows that I've been thinking about at the same time. Now, Every Version Ever isn't a perfect name. Like I said, I love having the perfect name for things, but it is catchy, and in the age of internet hyperbole, I think it works. It probably won't be 100% accurate, especially in cases where some versions have been completely lost, like original silent films from the early 1900s, but I'm still going to do my best to try and talk about as many versions as I can find. So now that you're caught up, what can you expect from this show? Well, at the beginning, it's going to be mostly an archive for a lot of older episodes of my other shows. In the beginning, I'll be uploading some of my favorite episodes of Wonderland Wednesday, the Christmas Carol Countdown, Oztober, and the Secret Garden series. I'll be recording new intros and outros, but the content will mostly be the same as it was. While I do that, however, I will also be sprinkling in a few new episodes here and there. Sarah and I recorded an all-new episode of Wonderland Wednesday specifically to be the premiere episode of this show, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. After I've gotten a significant back catalog built up, I'm planning to move on to covering some brand new stories. Sarah and I have been talking on and off for ages about covering stories like Pride and Prejudice, Little Women, and more. And like I said earlier, I've wanted to do the War of the Worlds for ages. Plus, my friend Mark Brown and I have occasionally talked about covering different versions of things like The Jungle Book and Treasure Island. I grew up reading books like The Swiss Family Robinson, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Oliver Twist, The Time Machine, and so many others, and I'd love to discover new versions of all my old favorite stories, and maybe even new stories that I've never even read. Either way, I have a lot of plans for this show, and I'm sure it'll evolve beyond even what I'm already envisioning. That does seem to happen with most things I start, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, I'm just excited to get this show off the ground. If anyone out there has any suggestions for stories we could cover and versions we could watch, let me know via YouTube, Twitter, or anywhere else you can find me. I'm open to suggestions, and I welcome any and all potential ideas. Thank you all so much for your support, and stay tuned for every version ever.